57 Racing and the Cars Coffee and Donut Automotive event that happens in San Diego, California. I'm doing another vehicle review today. I'm hanging out with Brian Buck. He's got a 2020 Nissan GTR. We're lucky enough to get to go for a ride and take a look at some of the intricacies of the vehicle. Now, this, of course, is the pinnacle of the tuning car world. It's been a very sought-after car for the better part of about 15 or 20 years. Mostly been due in part because of video games and, of course, movies that have, made this car what it is and really made it popular. So, Brian, it's always good seeing you. I haven't seen you in a couple of months, and I've always known you as a Nissan guy. I mean, you've never really had any other vehicle. Why Nissans, just to start off?
Well, it kind of goes back to high school. My very first car was a hand-me-down from my parents. Their first car, or my first car, was basically a Nissan Maxima.
Okay.
They said, when I got my license, we got 2 extra cars, which one do you want? And it was between a yellow Cadillac and a Nissan Maxima.
So the Cadillac was not exactly...
The Cadillac was, my mom didn't care which one she drove, so I was like, I'll take that Maxima.
Oh, wow.
And they kind of knew, they knew that I wanted that one. And I always thought it was cool because it was the 4-door sports car,
Yeah.
And so I've had a bunch of them, and, I've, over the years, did different things to them, and I've had a bunch of Sentras, and...
Okay, so you have had some Sentras, because I always knew you was kind of a Maxima. You have an Ultimate now, right now, too, right?
No, I have a newer Maxima.
Oh, you have a newer Maxima, okay. Newer Maxima, and then, of course, you've got the GTR. Now, the GTR being, of course, the pinnacle of the tuning car world, and, of course, it's the flagship for Nissan. Nissan has always really kind of pushed everything towards, having sedans and coupes, and the GTR has just been something that's been very sought after. Now, there's a lot of aftermarket support for this vehicle, even though, right off the bat, you've got 565 horsepower, 400 foot-pounds of torque, and an all-wheel drive platform. And it's a 3.8-liter V6. It's twin-turboed. It's something that, even on the Nürburgring, had times that rivaled that of, I think, the Porsche GT3. I know with the Corvette ZR1, it was one of the rivals to that. So it's definitely a performance vehicle. Yours, obviously, is not tuned. You can hear the exhaust a little bit. What else have you done with this car beyond just the simple bolt-ons?
Basically, it's on E85.
Okay.
So it's got all the breathing mods, basically intakes, 3-inch, charge pipes, blow-off valves, vent to atmosphere, 4-inch catback, downpipes, catless downpipes, mid-pipe.
Sure.
So pretty much all the stuff to make it breathe the way it's supposed to. Yeah,
and of course you're tuned for E85, which takes a little bit more as well, because as I understand with the 85, you've got to change out your injectors. Sometimes you've got to change the fuel pump. And then of course there's computer tuning involved. Now, have you dynoed it yet with the current setup, or are you still kind of working on that?
No, I did dyno it. I dynoed it before I had the exhaust that I have now, which adds about 25 horsepower.
That's quite a boost just from an exhaust system.
So that was I did like 570 to the wheels, but that's on a Mustang dyno.
Sure. Which I think is
about 10% off.
Yeah, because a Mustang dyno was a little bit more of a load-bearing dyno for tuning purposely, so that you can kind of give it more of a real-world feel versus some of the other dynos that are on the market, where you get more of a free-spinning dyno, and everyone bases their horsepower numbers off those, because you look like a hero when you suddenly have 10% more. Especially when you're talking about 570 horse. So you're probably right around 600 horse, maybe 620-ish.
I'm probably like 600 on a Mustang and about 650 on a dyno jet.
Okay, so that's pretty decent for a car that's, of course, street driven. Now, you've done some engine tuning. Have you done anything with the suspension and the brakes as well, or is that pretty much
just I wanted to keep the ride control and everything that has the adaptive suspension.
Sure.
So I just lowered it with Swift 1-inch drop. It's just there.
Okay. Yeah.
So that way you can still get the comfort mode and the sport mode and everything in the suspension. Because if you go to coilovers and all that, you lose that. I really like to keep the car like as original as possible, but just how I feel it should have come from the factory.
Of course. So some subtle changes here and there, and of course, with the suspension in this, and with a lot of vehicles these days that are a little bit more on the higher end, and cars that I've tested, like some of the Corvettes, the Mustangs, the Porsches that I've been in, they all have that adaptive ride technology, so to speak, where you can put the vehicle in like just cruise mode and go down the freeway if you're just going to work, or if you're going to a track day, there's sport mode, there's sometimes a track mode, which of course firms up the suspension, probably changes a little bit of the feedback to you through the steering wheel. In fact, I've tested some bigger SUVs that have that as well, which I thought was pretty interesting for that aspect of the vehicle to have that versus what some of the other cars are that or on the road. So that's pretty amazing that you've got that in this package. Now, this is the 2020. It's the Premium Edition. So based, just on the Premium Edition, what comes with that versus some of the others? Because I know the Nismo Edition is like the pinnacle high-end GTR that you can purchase.
So yeah, there's basically, they used to have like a pure model, which was kind of like bare bones.
Okay.
And it didn't have like the bows or the parking sensors.
Okay.
It was just you wanted a GTR, you were going to build it up anyways. That's, and that one I think was around $100,000.
Okay.
Then they had the Premium, which had more of the bells and whistles. You get the Apple CarPlay, you get the parking sensors, and the Bose surround and all that.
And I noticed you have a backup camera as well.
Yeah, heated seats, all the doodads,
These are a pretty tight seat. I mean, me being the height that I am, and you're taller than I am and a little bit of a bigger guy, this is a pretty tight seat. I've sat in some cars where you've got some room in them, but there's definitely some tighter lumbar support. This thing is not designed for someone that's my size or your size necessarily.
I wouldn't daily drive this car. This is kind of my weekend. You can.
Yeah,
there's lots of guys that do, but yeah, for the bigger guys, I mean, these seats are designed to hold you in place. And,
of course.
So
more or less set up for if you're going to go do a track day or go do, whatever fun you want to have. It's going to plant you and hold you in the seat pretty decently.
But yeah, as far as like this versus the Nismo, which is almost twice the cost, it's basically aero, a slightly bigger turbo that has a little bit higher, top end, and then it's going to be mostly weight reduction.
Yeah.
So you're going to have like carbon roof, carbon hood, trunk, fenders, carbon ceramic brakes.
Yeah, that's right. That brake upgrade, I think, on these is like a $15,000 or $20,000 upgrade from what I read. I mean, that's just incredible. In fact, I've got another friend of mine that has one of these, and you can transfer over the ceramic brakes from the Porsche GT3, maybe it's the GT2, over this car because they use the same hub.
Yeah, there's different. I think there's another one that you can do from ZR1 or something.
Yeah, they all use that same, almost that hub setup to where the disc is the same size, which is pretty interesting because when it suddenly comes down to maintenance, you're looking at, $5,000 just to redo the brakes. And then, of course, you start factoring in tire costs and, what's an oil change like on one of these? Is it a couple $100 just to go do? Or?
It is, but it's not because it's really any different than changing oil on a Maxima or an Ultima. The only difference is there's a shit ton of screws and bolts underneath there to take the bottom plate off.
So it's labor time, taking it all out.
Exactly. And so a lot of people, they don't want to deal with it, so they just bring it and have it done somewhere.
Okay, yeah, makes sense for sure. Now, have you had this out at a track yet? Have you given it a shot just to see, lap time wise?
I haven't. No, I haven't yet. I mean, drag racing time wise, this thing's probably low 10s right now.
That's moving for a street car, for sure.
Yeah.
And you're still on the factory turbos as well. You haven't updated those yet.
Exactly.
So you've basically just done the bolt-ons to where you can get a little bit more out of it. And of course, the aftermarket supports a lot of that for the tuners that want one of these, or of course the kids that look at the GTR and its abilities and what you can do. And we've got a lot of big companies out there like Reddy, HKS. What are some of the other bigger ones?
Well, now you're looking at like Alpha AMS Performance, Boost Logic. Those are like the big.
Those are the big ones that do a lot of that stuff out there for these cars specifically. So, well, that's pretty amazing. Well, I appreciate you giving us a ride and letting us take a look. We're going to actually go out. We're going to take a closer look at the intricacies because essentially with the motor, it's a 3.8-liter V6 twin turbo. Some of the work that's done there, and some of the other intricate details of the interior space and all that. So let's cruise up here. Let's we'll get out of the car and we'll take a quick look.
Sounds good.
So taking a little bit of a closer look at what we've got with Brian's GTR, there's quite a bit involved with what he's done with the vehicle. Obviously it's sitting with a little bit of a 1-inch lower stance on it with the springs that he's got on it. He's got the factory wheel and tire package on it still and the factory braking system, but it's definitely good enough to be able to slow the car down from whatever fun he's having. So let's take a look under the hood. It's a 3.8 liter V6. Of course, it's a twin turbo. As we mentioned, it's factory with about 565 horsepower, I believe, just a little over 400 foot-pounds of torque. With the tuning that Brian has done to it, there's right around 600 horse to it to the wheel. Now that translates at the crank about 20% more, so you're probably looking at maybe 645, maybe 650.
Yeah.
So you've got quite a bit here. If you want to come in here and take a closer look at what's going on with the vehicle, Brian, you know more about what you've got in this from what you can visually see. So let us just show us about what you've got here with what's been done.
So aside from just a couple of little cosmetic changes with that, I put the Nismo cover and the coolant overflow tank, but I did the charge pipes. These are STM tuning, tile vent to atmosphere blow-off valves, the T1 air oil separator, got the 3-inch intakes, and then I've got catless downpipes by Speed by Design. I've got Boost Logic Quadzilla downpipe and 4-inch exhaust, and then E85 controller, EcuTech, and tuned by ACG Automotive.
That's quite a bit. Of course, ACG is here local in San Diego, and they're one of the Skyline GTR tuners that are local to us. So if you happen to have one of these and you live in Southern California, ACG is one of the companies to come take a look at as far as getting your tuning work done. If you come and take a look at the back, you can see the exhaust system that Brian's got installed. It's got these really nice titanium looking tips on here. And of course the back trunk area, there's actually a little bit of room in here. You can probably stick a set of golf clubs in here. So if you happen to be one of those types of guys that you want to run to the grocery store, you do have some room. Or of course if you want to go golfing, you've got a little bit of room for whatever you want to stick back there. So all in all, I mean, this is just one heck of a build. We've got quite a bit that we're looking at with the vehicle. This is probably one of the most powerful vehicles I've tested so far with this series. So I really hope you guys are liking what you see. For now, this is Brad hanging out with Brian Buck from Cars, Coffee, and Donuts San Diego, and from Lucky 7 Racing. We'll see you guys at the next one.